those meetings.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So, as most of you know, I'm Ben Sandoval, the manager of career services. I've met some of you before already. And so on today's video, I have James Brimhall, and he's actually an NPC alumnus. He graduated from NPC, and he's from the Snowflake area. And so I just have him here today to just talk about his career path, and his education path. And he's going to talk about his particular work situation. For a while, he's been telecommuting. So he actually lives, I think, in Pine Top or Snowflake, somewhere around there. And he works for a company that's based out in New Mexico. So he's going to share a little bit about how he got into that situation and give you guys some tips on how that works and what he's learned. And it's very relevant today because, you know, not only is telecommuting becoming more popular anyway, with COVID-19, a lot of you may actually be starting your first job on your first day telecommuting. So this, I think, is going to be a really great session, and James has a lot of experience and knowledge that I think is going to be very useful to you. So I'll just go ahead and pass this on to James and let him just start talking about who he is and what he wants to share with us.
Hey, thank you. So yes, James Brimhall, I grew up in Snowflake, and I attended NPC. One of the cool things I think about my past was I got my GED. I remember talking to my grandpa about it, and I said, "Grandpa, I'm gonna get my GED." And he said, "James, that's the dumbest mistake you're ever gonna make." And I looked at him and thought, well, that's kind of you, Grandpa. But I didn't really care about that because I knew I had some other issues I had to worry about. So I graduated with my GED, and I served a mission for my church, and then came home and went into NPC. NPC was a great school. I really enjoyed it. My favorite class was geology. I had no idea I enjoyed geology as much as I did. Well, after NPC, I graduated with my associates, and then I went over to NAU. I'm sorry, I didn't go over to NAU. I did my bachelor's online through NAU in Snowflake. I took over a little dry cleaners, and I did that while I did my degree online. I got my degree in supply chain and logistics that's my emphasis, I guess I should say. And I then went and got my master's. Then I went and I finally got a job working for a company out in New Mexico called Sandia National Labs. And while I was there at Sandia National Labs, I got my master's through UNM. The reason why I kind of went back, one of the reasons I gave you information on my GED is because I feel like one of the important things in your life is the experiences that you're able to obtain. In my interviews that I've had working with companies, in my opportunities that I've had within my career, a lot of it has came from the experiences that I've been able to look back on and phrase and show that I have some knowledge. So I encourage you guys to go out and look for experiences that you can grow, learn, do as much as you can to try to grow. Not necessarily become an expert, but the more you know, you'll be able to find out what your interests are and what you love to do. So back to my career. So I went over to Albuquerque, and I worked for the company. And when I am a subcontract professional, the industry calls us buyers. And so my main duties are being responsible for subcontracts. So at Sandia National Labs, they're a federal research facility. And so I work with the engineers, and I work with subcontractors, our suppliers, and negotiating contracts, ensuring that the price is fair and reasonable, ensuring that we're following the appropriate policies. I negotiate terms and conditions. I'm pretty much the middleman for the government and the suppliers. Well, within a couple of years, I realized all my work could be done online. And me and my wife have been talking about possibly moving back home, being closer to family. We had our little boy, and we knew we were going to grow our family even more. And so we thought, we want to get closer back. We want to get closer to family. And so I approached my manager. I spoke with him about being working from home, and he was very supportive of it. And during this process of me and my wife discussing if I should be a virtual employee, which if some of you eventually want to become a virtual employee or stay at your company facility, some of the things that you need to consider are your performance. Not saying that you can't be an excellent employee working at home, but you're working at a different level. If you still have other individuals who you're in a way competing against at the office, that's your competition, and they're the ones that are getting the FaceTime with your managers, learning through the weeds about other upcoming projects that they can be involved in. So again, they're just more involved in the day-to-day activities. So one thing we knew is my performance, I may not be involved as much as I would like to be, but again, our family was more important. And then the next thought is, are you able to work from home and be in a way self-isolated, work on a computer for multiple hours during the day? And luckily, I did my bachelor's online, to where that kind of made me reassured to myself that yes, I can work online. I am able to be self-motivated. I mean, it's still hard some days, just like it's hard going into the office. But overall, you have to keep thinking back to your reasons of why you wanted to work from home, or why you chose to step back from the office and work from home. Your family, location where you want to live. I was in Albuquerque, which we loved, but we want to get back home, and our family's in Pine Top. And so we live in Pine Top now, which we love, being able to see my kid run out in the forest and being able to, at my lunch break, go visit with him instead of a coworker that I could really care less about. So there's a lot of benefits of just being able to really focus on your family, if that's one of your goals at that time in your career. Some other things that I wrote down, your setup. So when I say setup, I mean, do you have reliable internet connection? I hate to, diss on Frontier, but sorry, Frontier, you guys have, impacted me in a couple areas. So you have to make sure that you have a good internet connection to where you can be reliable on your meetings, on your work, that you can be contacted if needed. And so, make sure you live in an area where you can have that effective internet. A plus with your setup. They always talk about, a lot of individuals can work on their cell phone or their laptop. That is definitely true, and some jobs are perfectly okay with that. But think about, if I'm going to be effective and if I'm going to perform well, what is the setup I need? Do I need a very comfortable chair? Do I need a room where I can lock myself away and be isolated from my family or from my roommates or whatever from that noise? Do I need 2 computer screens to be able to work effectively looking at either your Excel spreadsheet, your Word documents, just whatever you're working on? How can you make sure that you are effective? One of these things that has come up with the whole COVID-19 situation is a lot of my coworkers who were at the office went home, and they thought they would be fine working on the laptop. And the first thing I told them was, you have to get dual screens. If you want to be effective, if you want to be as effective as you possibly can, make sure that you have your dual screens. Because that's what they're used to, and that's what I was used to. So make sure that your setup, whatever it may be, you are okay with it, and that it meets your needs. So kind of another area of information that I've done is, one of the things that I wanted to do coming back home was give back to my community. So I like Ben said, I grew up in Snowflake, and my wife, she grew up in Pine Top. And so we love the mountain. And so one thing I always wanted to do is in some way give back to my community. And I thought about, maybe getting more involved in town council or politics, etc. But one of the things that I knew that I could do is possibly start a group for individuals like me who work from home. And so we started a group called Virtual Employees of the White Mountain. And that is just to allow individuals like me who work from home, who may not have that interaction of day-to-day with other individuals, that where we're able to get together once in a while, have a dinner, and just talk about, work, talk about experiences, and in a way, network. One of the things about working from home is, I don't care who you are, eventually you'll miss some type of interaction with somebody. You may be someone who's super shy, but in some way you can grow a friendship with somebody. And so that is the idea is, we still want to grow friendships. We still want to grow our networking base. And so that's why we started the group. Now, hopefully we can expand it. We had a couple meetings and then COVID-19 hit. And so pretty much we stopped all interactions, all of our meetings for, ever since COVID-19 hit the area. And so hopefully we're going to be getting that started up soon again. And for those who may eventually work from home, they will be able to, hear more from us when we increase our marketing efforts.
Okay. All right. Wouldn't that be kind of funny, James, if instead of, meeting in person with that virtual employees of the White Mountains, you ended up doing Zoom?
No, heck no.
Or maybe
No,
virtually.
no.
That would not work,
Sure,
right?
but no, that's totally, no, we want to get together, get that socialness and be good. I thought about that.
Okay, so you were at NPC you were do you got your associates, did you say, in business?
So I got my associates in business, and then
Oh,
I got my BA and then an MBA.
And then an MBA, okay. And then your MBA, you said you got at UNM, at University of New Mexico. Oh, okay, so you were working while you were taking
Yes.
business classes, or
Yep.
Oh, okay, wow, great. So, so how did you then convince your manager to let you work from home? Because was it kind of a new thing at the time? Was it atypical, do you know, at the company to?
So we already had a couple individuals who worked from home, but they moved because of pretty much their spouse. Their spouse got a new job, or for whatever reason, they had a really good reason to move, where ours was more of a preference. And so it was kind of an awkward situation in my stance. So luckily my manager had a really good relationship. And I was able to show him my performance was not adequate, but if I was to move out of the office, I could still perform at the same level where I performed in the office. And that was pretty much the main thing, is that over the years, I was able to prove to him that I could work. I know if I went in there I know individuals who have wanted to work from home, and they go and they ask their manager to work, and they say no because they haven't been there long enough to show their performance. And so that's where, for me, it was still, I was nervous about it, because if he said, he easily could have said no, but this was a goal that I had of mine, and my performance was there. And so he was a great guy and said, yeah, we can do that.
Okay, great. So in some ways, is it fair to characterize it as, okay, so you worked on site and kind of proved yourself.
Yes.
And then that was what helped make the case to then move back to where you grew up, here in the mountains.
Yep.
That's a fair way to say it. Okay.
And I know some individuals may apply for jobs that may just be virtually already, so that's great for them. But if it almost goes back to your desire, what is your desire? Why would you want to work from home? And so if you're in a company that allows virtual, telecommuting, or not a company, but you can do your job as a virtual employee, it goes back to your why. Why do you want to do this? Why are you going to be successful?
Right. Okay. And you got to sometimes maybe you got to make the case and really, tell it from the organization's perspective a little bit, because that's one of the things, right, is that probably, sometimes maybe some managers, or upper management, may be reluctant to let some people work remotely, because it's like, well, I can't see you.
Yeah.
I don't, I don't. So therefore there's like maybe a higher level of trust. Is that true? Like that they have to, when people are working remotely, there's a higher level of trust that they have to trust that you're gonna.
I don't know. That's what's hard. For those who work in the office, it's like, I can go visit with my coworker for an hour, and we can talk about horses or something, whatever we want to talk about, and you think we're working. Whereas if I'm home, do you think I'm not working or something? So it's such a weird, from my experience in visiting with other individuals who try to work with my company and others, within my network, it's almost like a generational thing, where a lot of the, I would say, more senior leadership are almost like against, if I can't see you, you can't be working. Whereas younger individuals are more like, yeah, we can do that. And again, a lot of, like, so on my part, if my company sees that my performance is not adequate, they can say, I have to report back or lose my job within like 60 days. And so we sign these agreements to state, I will maintain my performance or I go back or I quit. So, I mean, is a trust issue? I don't know, but if you can just prove that you can do your work, and if you, even like you said, like, why is it benefiting you? I know at our company, you know, an office space costs around, I think it was $8,000 to $11,000 a year. And so if they can get a couple of employees out of that office, I mean, that's money. That's money that they can use elsewhere. And so there's multiple areas and cases that you can make. Hey, I want to move closer to a client. Hey, I want to move closer to my family for my support with my kids, where I can work more and stay focused on my projects. It just comes down to, how can you be creative and how can you make sure and prove to them that you will still be effective working from home.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that, James. I didn't even consider, you know, that their incentive is saving money on the office space.
Oh yeah.
You know, I didn't even think about that. So that's okay. That's very interesting. Okay. And then, like you were saying about, you know, being able to move back home, and it's kind of seemed like you're saying, like, you like the flexibility. You know, you cut down, for you as an employee, it works out because you get to live where you want.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to live in a big urban area, you don't have to. You know, you have your support system, and you have like the work flexibility that you're not wasting time commuting and all this other stuff. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Oh yeah.
As well?
There's always, like you and I were talking before, it's like a double, there's like the pros and cons. And there's a lot more, if you look at it, there's a lot more pros, like almost like in a work-life balance, by being at home. I know individuals will say, oh, I log on late. Well, maybe they decided to go for a long run or went out in the woods or went and did something in the middle of the daytime, and now they're catching up on work in the evening. And so it just gives that flexibility to really work around your life, and while you are still able to ensure that you do your job, instead of, I got to be at the office for 8 or 9 hours a day and I leave. It's, no, I can do my job. I can ensure that I can still, you know, work my hours appropriately, but I can work as I need, as I feel is best appropriate for me and my family and the company.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. And so probably too, like if you just want to go outside, you know, with, you know, your laptop or computer or something, you can probably do that too, right? You know,
yeah.
Right. And as opposed to the office, it's sort of, that's kind of awkward. You can't necessarily do that as easily, perhaps.
Yeah, they'd look at you funny.
All right. Okay. So how would you, so working from home, then you got to make yourself a little bit more visible in a way, would you say? Because you can kind of be out of sight and out of mind, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
One of the key things is, in a way, picking up the phone. When you're working on a team, or when you're working on, not even on a team, like when you're working on your own work, there's probably areas that you can come across that you can say, you know what, I could reach out to this person and ask them a question. You can always shoot them an email, but one of the things is you're trying to build your network, you're trying to expand your knowledge, and so just by being able to pick up the phone or Skype or Zoom or whatever your communication is, if you're just able to have a conversation with them, that's one of the key things. And not just going straight to work, it's still getting to know the individual, it's still talking about what they're doing, their concerns, etc., and building those relationships. I know individuals who can just completely do their work and keep it completely professional, which is great. But once you're, like you said, out of sight, out of mind, you need to make sure that you're not out of sight, out of mind. And that's all completely on you. You know, you managers have the responsibility to, you know, make sure that they reach out to their team, make sure that they're in contact with their employees, but they have bigger issues to worry about. They're not going to think, oh, I got to contact this person. No, you know, they have issues that we don't even know about. And so it's on you to reach out to your manager, reach out to your team lead, reach out to coworkers, reach out to the policy department, reach out to your shipping department. You know, these questions that you have, you're able to reach out to them. And even if you like make up a question, like if you're bored and you want to call somebody and have a legitimate question in a way, but just so you can even expand your network that way. like just at work, you know, walking around, you bump into somebody and you have a conversation. That's where it's all on you in a way to ensure that you're expanding your network. It can be difficult. It will be difficult. It is hard, but it's, you know, it's one of the downfalls of being a virtual employee, not being at the office of, you know what, this is one of your responsibilities that you will have to complete.
Right. Okay. I see. All right. Do you mind sharing like whatever mistake that you've made telecommuting?
Oh yeah.
What you learned from that?
So some of the mistakes, like for example, like I just said, calling somebody, and I would even say this is almost, even if you call somebody in the office or not, when you call somebody, you talk with them, if it's something important, make sure and document it. Some of my things that I run into is because I like to talk to people more. And so I've talked to individuals. I felt like we figured out a solution. I do that solution and somebody gets mad at me. And I say, but wait, we talked about it over the phone. Well, I didn't know that's what you meant. And so if it's an important decision, or if it's something that you think, you know what, I should have just shoot him an email for a follow-up, make sure and do that. And that's recently been kind of bad for me. Anyway, other areas is stretching. Make sure you stretch. I mean, of course, even at your other desk, but working from home, you need to make sure and stretch. You need to make sure and enjoy, you know, whatever your surroundings are. Make sure you stretch your back, your neck, whatever. I go and get a massage once in a while, and I ask my massage therapist, you know, what is like the worst job for your body? Oh, sitting is. So excellent. I'm killing myself every single day I go to work. And so make sure you're stretching. And the third thing I would say is make sure that you remind yourself why you're being a virtual employee. Because some individuals may not have the problem because I have no other option. But if you choose to become a virtual employee, you will be, you know, it'll come back and like keeps like, man, if I was at the office, I could maybe get promoted quicker. If I was at the office, I could, you know, talk with this individual about these projects. I could, you know, possibly get, you know, promoted to other job opportunities. You have to go back to, well, why am I doing this? Because you can get depressed, you can get annoyed. You have to make sure that you remember your happy place. And that, I think that's been a struggle, not for me recently. I've had to quickly, also, yeah, it's been a struggle for me recently just because you know, certain things come up from work and it's, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I love looking outside my window and see my boy run around with my dog. I love being able to, like I said, go in and have lunch with my family. I love being able to just go on a walk in the woods. I love on Sunday nights not having the anxiety of, oh, I have to go to work tomorrow. What are my job duties? I got to get ready, etc. No, I wake up and go to work. So you have to remember these are the benefits of why I wanted to be a virtual employee. I think that's the main one, is remembering your why. If you don't have a good why, I recommend not being a virtual employee. If you have a good why that you can make sure and fall back on, it can be great. It can be a great situation for you and your family. And I'd recommend it if you have a strong why.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even think about that, James. You know, having that strong why, that strong reason.
Yeah.
Too. Because are you kind of saying then that that you miss out on some of those relationships when you're, you know, physically in an office, you know, to go to lunch with coworkers, to go to lunch with the boss and see what's on their mind and figure out what they're about, and, you know, kind of know how to work that situation.
Totally. Because what's hard is, because you got to think about, so what I would say this, when I was in the office, my job was interacting with individuals. It wasn't like you know, gossiping or et cetera. It was, no, like my role was like, in a way, one of my key functions was supply relationships. So meeting with suppliers, meeting with other individuals. So it was being able to, you know, collaborate, talk with individuals, try to figure these problems out. I can still do that now, but not to the extent. And so by coming out and being a virtual employee, my job duties kind of switched. So some of the things that I have to do more now, I don't love. And so it's, you know what, this task that I have to do more now is not something that I love doing. So I got to remember why I'm okay doing it. you know, meeting with your manager, all those things are still fun and enjoyable, but it's like, and for me, it was just, I took on some different job duties that I don't love. I would say that, but they're part of my job now. So I just have to remember my why, and it's, no, this is fine why I'm doing this. So again, it just goes back to your why, because everybody's situation is going to be different, and their reasons are going to be different, and their jobs are going to be different. But if you have a strong why that you can go fall back on, you know, that's going to help you get through whatever it may be.
Oh, awesome. Great. Well, I won't take up too much more of your time, but I was curious, can you talk a little bit about a little bit more about like what your like the skills that you use at your current job? Well, I'm sorry, what was it? A project manager? I always keep messing
Yeah,
up.
a subcontract manager. Just like
Subcontract. Okay.
yeah.
And you said something about like negotiation and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you mind just talking a little bit about, you know, the skills that you use in that position?
So one of the big skills we use is organization, making sure you have all your documents in a row, because in procurement, it's documentation. You got to make sure you document as much as you can for proof and evidence. And so documenting is a big thing. But then we also always negotiate our terms and so within the job, we have to negotiate the terms and conditions. And it, again, that just depends on the supplier, depends on Sandia's standpoint. So negotiating what we will accept and what the supplier won't or will accept. Pricing. So obviously one of the parts on our side is making sure we're always paying a fair price. Just like, you know, every consumer wants to make sure that they pay a fair price. Well, our role is justifying that price, making sure that we are paying that fair price. And that's, again, negotiating. A lot of it is your labor hours, material, and kind of what's hard. And our side, it's, since it's R&D, it's not like we have a whole bunch of, we can go out and look to see what the other person's paying or is paying. And so we have to, you know, do our research to do the best job that we can to ensure that we're paying a fair price for these services, commodities, etc. Other parts is supplier relationships. So a big thing in our job is ensuring that you're able to interact with people well, you're able to build trust quickly, you're able to work with both, again, the supplier and and your employer, because there's issues on both sides. And as one of our roles is to ensure that the supplier is treated fair, and so is our employer, obviously. And so you're negotiating issues that come up. You're pretty much just making sure that the contract runs smoothly and well as possible. Other areas are data analytics, looking to see where we can create efficiency, looking to see how we can consolidate suppliers, looking to see how we can ensure that, you know, we're being as effective as possible with our funds. So those are the main things that we work on. And there's a lot of different job roles and duties within a buyer's world, but at Sandia National Labs, that's kind of those are the main things that we end up doing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think one time when I was talking with you, you were saying that one of the skills that you think is becoming more important in business in general, I think you said business in general,
Yeah.
is project management, like
Oh, yeah.
a certificate in that. Yeah.
So I would say if individuals are looking for opportunity, so one big thing is certification. So yeah, you get your associates and then you can get your bachelor's, but I think a lot of companies are looking for like certifications, and especially in the project management world. At least from my experience working with the labs and what the government and other, you know, federally funded research facilities are ending up with, it's, you know, scheduling. How are we on schedule? We know we have this amount of money to spend. We know what our timeline is. How are we going to get there? Who are our suppliers? Who are we going to ensure that, you know, we work well with, et cetera? So if individuals are at all interested in projects, I would encourage them to look into the PMI and figure out what type of certification that they would like to pursue. There are difficult certifications to achieve, mainly for hours for the most part, but those are, if you can get certifications in those areas, you know, I think you can have a lot of job opportunities, and those eventually I think could be done remotely for the most sense. A lot of it's done on a computer using different, you know, tools for project management, but that's a big thing. I'm currently trying to get into that world. At my current job is into the project side of the work that we do.
Awesome. Great. All right. So I'll just end it by saying that, you know, working remotely, you know, is becoming, you know, more common, you know, especially because of COVID-19, and businesses are probably likely to want to save on their office space. And so that's good news, I think, for a lot of, you know, the NPC students, because a lot of them don't want to leave the mountain in a way, you know, they don't want to leave or wherever they grew up, you know, around here. You know, they feel like they always have to move to Phoenix or somewhere else. And I think what I really like about your story, James, is that it's sort of like, okay, well, maybe you do have to move for a short period of time, you know, a year or two, you know, and, you know, prove yourself, show that you can, you know, perform. And, you know, then perhaps then you can always move back, you know, it's not like you got to stay away forever, that you can come back. And so I would really encourage, you know, the students to really think of that as a possibility for their careers once they're finished with NPC, or if they transfer, once they finish a bachelor's or whatever they're going to do. That is an option for them. Okay. And if they are, I mean, if they find themselves in the White Mountains, they can just, there's a group there, as you said, James, right, that you've started, the Virtual Employees of the White Mountains.
Right, yeah, and once we get started again, I'll give you more information. So if they're interested, they can reach out to you, because I want to make sure we get our foot grounded before we start, you know, we want to get back on our feet from COVID.
Okay. Okay. So any of you that are interested in that, just go ahead, you know, my contact information, and I can get you in touch with James. All right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, James, thank you so much, you know, for taking the time this afternoon and, you know, sharing your knowledge and experience. I think it's going to be very helpful. All right.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep. Talk to you later.